Hey everyone! Welcome to this A1 English listening practice video. You can use this video to improve your English listening and comprehension. Ready? There was a time when I would sit and worry about every single word I said in English. I'd overthink, hesitate, and sometimes even avoid speaking because I was so scared of making a mistake. I'm sure many of you have felt that way, too, let's be honest. We all know that feeling, when you're in a conversation and suddenly your mind goes blank, or you fumble for words like they're missing. It can be really frustrating. But here's what I've discovered over the years: speaking English effortlessly isn't some magical talent that only a few people are born with. It's a skill, just like riding a bike or playing a musical instrument, that you can learn with time and practice. I want to talk to you today about a few things that really helped me. And as we go through this, feel free to pause, take a breath, or even try out one of the little exercises I mention along the way. I promise, it's all very simple and very doable. So, let's start with something that many of us struggle with: the fear of making mistakes. I used to worry so much about being perfect. I'd rehearse sentences in my head, and when I finally got a chance to speak, I would freeze up. But then I realized, what if I just let go? What if I allowed myself to speak without trying to be perfect? Imagine having a conversation where you're not worrying about every mispronunciation or awkward pause, but just sharing your ideas as they come. That's the secret: you don't need to be flawless. You just need to be understood. Now, imagine sitting in a cozy corner, maybe with a cup of tea, and thinking about your day in English. Instead of translating your thoughts from your native language, you start forming them directly in English. It sounds a bit odd at first, but trust me, with time, this becomes more natural. I used to remind myself, it's just a conversation. No one is judging you, and every mistake is a step forward. And guess what? Over time, that mindset shift made all the difference. I remember one day I decided to just talk out loud about everything I was doing, even if I was alone in my room. I described my morning: I wake up, I brush my teeth, I eat breakfast. It was so simple, yet it changed the way I thought. Instead of mentally translating, I was simply expressing myself. That was the first step toward speaking English effortlessly. Another thing that really helped was building vocabulary naturally. You might have seen countless lists online telling you to memorize hundreds of words. But honestly, that approach felt overwhelming to me. Instead, I started learning words as I encountered them in everyday life. When I watched an English movie or read a simple article, I'd note down any new words I heard and try to use them in a sentence right away. For example, if I heard the word sparkling, I'd say to myself, "The water is sparkling." It wasn't about memorization, it was about making connections. And then there's the idea of learning phrases rather than just single words. It's much easier to remember "I feel happy today" than just the word happy. When you learn a phrase, you're not only learning a word, but also the way it fits into a sentence. These little chunks of language become the building blocks of your conversation. I started using these phrases in my daily life, at home, when I was out, even when I was thinking to myself. Soon enough, I wasn't stopping to translate every thought. It just came naturally. Now, let's talk about practice. This is really where everything comes together. Speaking English effortlessly doesn't happen by sitting down with a grammar book. It happens when you speak, and speak, and speak. I began by talking to myself. Yes, that might sound a bit weird, but it really works. I'd say simple sentences like I wake up, I eat breakfast, I go to work, and over time, my brain started to think in English without me even noticing it. It's like exercising any other muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. There's also a technique called shadowing. Have you ever watched a movie or a YouTube video and thought, I wish I could say that exactly like they do? Shadowing is when you listen to a native speaker and then immediately repeat what they said. I started with very short sentences, 1 or 2 lines, and then gradually built up. At first, it felt mechanical, like I was mimicking a robot. But soon, I began to pick up on the natural rhythm and flow of English. It helped a lot with my pronunciation and intonation. If you have a clip that you like, try pausing and repeating it until it feels natural. Another simple but effective practice is recording yourself. I know, hearing your own voice can be a little uncomfortable at first, but it's one of the best ways to improve. Record a short talk about your day, even if it's just a minute long. Then listen to it. You'll likely notice small pauses or moments where you hesitate. These are your opportunities to improve. Keep practicing those parts until they feel smooth. Over time, you'll start to notice that your speech becomes more fluid. One more tip for practice is to join conversation groups or language exchanges. There's something incredibly powerful about speaking with others who are also learning. In these groups, you'll find that everyone is supportive and eager to help each other improve. The pressure to be perfect fades away when you realize that we're all in the same boat. It's a safe space to practice, make mistakes, and grow. And trust me, those small conversations add up over time. Now, I want to be honest about the challenges. Many of us have been held back by a fear of making mistakes. I used to worry that every error would make me look bad, and that made me so hesitant to speak. But here's the thing, every mistake is a lesson. Instead of fearing them, we should embrace them. Each time you make a mistake, think of it as a tiny step forward. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. You fall off a few times, but each fall teaches you something until you're riding effortlessly. I remember the first time I recorded myself speaking and listened back. I could hear every pause, every stumble. But instead of being discouraged, I realized these were moments where I was learning. I began to work on those areas, and slowly, I became more confident. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about improving bit by bit every day. So, if you're feeling nervous, just remember, it's completely normal. We all start somewhere, and every conversation you have is progress. Instead of worrying about what might go wrong, focus on what you want to say. Let your ideas flow without overthinking the words. Speak slowly at first if you need to, and gradually, your speed will pick up naturally. I also want to share how integrating English into your daily life makes a huge difference. I started by changing small things, like setting my phone and computer to English. It sounds trivial, but it forces your mind to use English throughout the day. I began reading simple English articles, watching TV shows, and even listening to English music. Slowly, these small changes built up, and I found myself thinking in English without even trying. One day, I decided to write a simple diary in English. I would jot down a few sentences about my day, nothing fancy, just honest thoughts. Over time, I noticed that I was starting to think in English, and my sentences became clearer and more natural. It wasn't an overnight miracle, it was a gradual process, but it worked. It's important to enjoy these small victories. Every time you say a sentence without pausing to translate in your head, celebrate it. It might seem insignificant, but these moments add up to big progress over time. Remember, learning a language is not a race. It's a journey filled with little steps, and every step matters. Let's pause here for a moment. I want you to reflect on this. Think about one small victory you had recently in speaking English. Maybe it was a conversation with a friend or simply reading out loud without hesitation. Remember that feeling. Hold on to it as motivation for the days ahead. Now, let's talk about a few simple exercises that you can do every day to make speaking English feel more natural. One thing I did was practice naming objects. Every time I walked into a room, I would silently say the names of the items around me: table, chair, window. It may seem trivial, but it really trains your brain to form words quickly. Give it a try next time you're in a new place. Another exercise I loved was making up short stories about my day. They don't have to be long or complicated. For example, I would say, I woke up. I ate breakfast. I went for a walk. Repeating these simple sentences out loud helped me build confidence in my speaking skills. And the best part is, over time, those simple sentences start forming longer, more natural conversations. I also started shadowing short audio clips. This means I would listen to a sentence from a video or podcast and then immediately repeat it, trying to match the tone and speed. At first, it was challenging, but after a while, I began to notice that my pronunciation improved, and my speech started to flow more naturally. It's one of those exercises that you can do for just a few minutes every day, but it makes a big difference. Recording yourself is another great practice. I know it can feel a bit strange at first, but hearing your own voice is one of the most effective ways to catch mistakes and improve. Record a short talk about your day, then listen to it. You might find that you pause too long or that certain words don't come out right. Use that as feedback to practice more. It's like having your own little coach. Now, integrating these practices into your daily routine is key. It's not enough to do them once in a while. You have to make English a part of your life. Change the language on your phone, watch TV shows or movies in English, and try to think in English as much as possible. The more you expose yourself to the language, the easier it becomes to speak it without thinking. I want to emphasize something important here. The journey to speaking English effortlessly is gradual. There will be days when it feels like you're making huge strides, and there will be days when you stumble. That's completely normal. The important part is to keep going. Every conversation, every sentence you speak, is progress. And every time you face your fear and speak out loud, you're one step closer to your goal. Imagine the difference in a year if you practice just a little bit every day. Your ability to express yourself will improve dramatically. And the best part is, you will start to enjoy speaking English because it will become second nature. I also want to share a personal story. There was a time when I was very hesitant to speak English, even though I had studied it for years. I remember attending a small language exchange event where I had to introduce myself. My heart pounded, and my mind went blank. But I took a deep breath and simply said, "Hi, I like reading and listening to music. It was simple, but that moment was a turning point. I realized that if I could just share a few words, people would understand me. That small success boosted my confidence and changed the way I approached every conversation thereafter. Over time, I began to see that the key wasn't about knowing every word perfectly, it was about the courage to speak. Once I accepted that, my English started to flow more naturally. I stopped worrying so much about grammar and pronunciation, and instead focused on getting my ideas across. It felt liberating, and I started enjoying conversations in English. It's also important to remember that speaking is not a one-way street. It's interactive. When you speak, listen to the responses. Engage with the people around you. Ask questions. When you do this, you create a feedback loop that helps you learn even more quickly. Every time you speak, you're not only expressing yourself, you're also learning from the conversation. Now, let's reflect for a moment. Think about a time when you had a good conversation in English. Even if it was just a short one. What made that conversation work? Was it that you were relaxed? Was it that you had prepared a little bit in advance? Use that memory as a reminder that you are capable of speaking well. And if you ever doubt yourself, remember that every word you speak is a step toward effortless fluency. As we continue, I encourage you to try these simple practices and see how they work for you. Set aside a few minutes each day to practice speaking out loud, whether it's by describing your day, shadowing a video clip, or simply talking to yourself in the mirror. Over time, these small habits will add up to big improvements. Before I wrap up, let me share one more thought. Learning to speak English effortlessly isn't about having a perfect accent or using complex sentences. It's about communicating your thoughts clearly and confidently. Every time you speak, focus on your message rather than your mistakes. This shift in focus can make all the difference. Instead of saying, "I must not make an error," try saying, "I am here to share my thoughts." It might sound simple, but it is powerful. I know this journey isn't always easy. There will be days when you feel frustrated or when your words don't come out as smoothly as you want. But that's okay. Every conversation, every attempt, is progress. And remember, you are not alone. Many people are on this same journey, and every small step you take brings you closer to your goal. I hope that by the end of this talk, you feel more empowered to speak English in your everyday life. I truly believe that if you practice regularly and keep a positive mindset, speaking English effortlessly will become your reality. Now, let me ask you this: what is one small step you can take today to practice speaking English? Maybe it's introducing yourself to someone new or simply saying your daily routine out loud. Whatever it is, take that step. Each small action builds your confidence and makes speaking English easier. Remember, there is no magic formula, only consistent practice and the willingness to try, fail, and try again. Celebrate your small victories. Even if you speak for just 1 minute, that 1 minute is a victory. Every word is progress, and every conversation is a win. As you move forward, keep these ideas close to your heart. Change your mindset, build your vocabulary and context, and practice every single day. Over time, you will see the change in your fluency, and you will start to speak English as naturally as you think. I want you to know that every bit of effort counts. Your journey to effortless English is a series of small, continuous steps. Be patient with yourself and enjoy the process. The more you speak, the more confident you will become. And soon, you'll find that you don't have to work so hard to express your thoughts in English, it will just happen. Thank you for listening to this talk. I hope you found these ideas helpful and that you feel inspired to take the next step. Remember, every conversation is a chance to improve, and every moment you practice brings you closer to your goal. Keep practicing, stay positive, and don't worry about being perfect. Speak with confidence, even if your words are simple. Every time you speak, you're growing, learning, and getting better. And that is what truly matters. Until next time, take care of yourself, be patient, and keep speaking English. Every day, every word, every conversation adds up. Remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. I believe in you, and I know that with every step you take, you're moving closer to speaking English effortlessly.